drill bit screamed against ancient rock, sending vibrations up Day One's arms. He wiped sweat from his forehead and checked his scanner again. Something was wrong with the readings. The rock density kept changing, showing hollow spaces where there should be solid stone. Control, this is excavation point 7. I'm getting strange readings down here, he said into his comm unit. Static crackled back. Copy that, Day One? What kind of strange? Like there's empty space behind this wall. Big empty space. The voice on the other end laughed. You found a cave. Mark it and move to the next section. Day One frowned. The scanner showed perfectly smooth walls behind the rock, too smooth to be natural. He had been working this asteroid mining colony for 2 years, ever since he left Earth, ever since his sister died in the colony disaster on Mars. Out here, in the silence of deep space, he could forget. Out here, the memories didn't hurt as much, but curiosity was stronger than protocol. He adjusted the drill angle and pressed forward. The bit punched through suddenly, and air hissed out from the opening. Day One jerked back. Air meant pressure. Pressure meant someone had sealed this space intentionally. His heart pounded as he widened the hole, then squeezed through with his helmet light, cutting through darkness. The chamber beyond took his breath away. Walls covered in flowing symbols that seemed to glow faintly blue. The architecture was impossible. Angles that hurt to look at directly, as if the room existed in more dimensions than his eyes could process. And in the center, suspended in a column of soft light, was a pod made of material that looked like crystallized starlight. Day One approached slowly. Through the transparent surface, he could see a woman. Her skin was silver, actually silver like polished metal, and her hair floated around her face in shades of deep violet. She looked peaceful, asleep, her hands folded across her chest. His engineer's mind screamed that this was impossible. The asteroid was 4 billion years old. Nothing human had reached this far into space until 50 years ago. This chamber, this technology, predated humanity's entire existence in space. He reached out to touch the pod, and the moment his gloved fingers made contact, everything changed. Light exploded through the room. The symbols on the walls blazed bright, and the pod began to open with a sound like singing crystal. Day One stumbled backward, reaching for the emergency beacon on his belt, but his hands wouldn't move. He was frozen, watching as the woman's eyes opened. They were like looking into nebulae, swirling colors of purple and gold and silver, with no white, no pupil, just infinite depth. She sat up smoothly, those impossible eyes fixing on him, and her mouth moved. The sounds that came out were musical, like no language he had ever heard. Then she raised one hand and pressed her fingers to her own temple. Light flickered there, and suddenly the resonance cannon's beam was invisible to normal sight, but every sensor in the solar system registered it. A focused column of energy that existed partially outside normal space, guided by calculations that required consciousness rather than mere computation. It crossed the distance to the Kalthari flagship in microseconds. The beam struck the Dominion's fist at precisely the frequency Valera had calculated. The flagship's shields, designed to disperse energy attacks, found nothing to disperse. The beam simply passed through them, as if they weren't there, drilling into the ship's massive hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the flagship's main reactor went critical. The explosion was visible from Earth, a new star blooming in the darkness. The Dominion's fist tore itself apart from the inside, secondary detonations cascading through its structure. Debris scattered in all directions, taking out 2 nearby Kalthari cruisers. In the resonance cannon's control room, Day One felt Valera's consciousness flicker and fade. Her last words whispered through the system. "Stay defiant, children of Earth. The galaxy needs you." Then she was gone. The memory core in Day One's hand went dark and cold. He stood there, tears streaming down his face, As the battle raged around him, the destruction of their flagship broke the Caltharies' will. They had never lost a dreadnought to a species they considered primitive. Confusion spread through their ranks as their fleet command structure collapsed. Ships that had been pressing attacks began to pull back. So Ra saw the opening and took it. All forces full attack. Drive them back. Human warships, no longer fighting defensively, surged forward. Tuho's fighter squadron harried retreating Calthari ships, their upgraded weapons tearing through armor that seemed suddenly less invincible. Haiyan Wu's ground forces repelled the few drop troops that had reached Earth's surface. The Calthari fleet fled. Out of 300 ships, barely 200 escaped into faster-than-light travel, limping away with damaged hulls and shattered confidence. Earth had won. The celebration that followed was muted. Yes, they had survived. Yes, they had driven off an enemy that should have destroyed them. But the cost was devastating. Thousands of ships destroyed. Entire orbital stations damaged. Millions dead from the initial attacks. Taiho survived, but lost his left leg below the knee in a crash landing. He was fitted with an Hanari prosthetic that worked better than his original leg ever had. At least I got an upgrade out of it, he joked. Though his eyes remained haunted. So Ra was promoted to commander and decorated as a hero. She accepted the honors with quiet dignity, but refused to take credit. Valera saved us, she said in every interview. We just did what she made possible. Haiyan Wu continued serving, training the next generation of defenders. He never spoke about the battle, but those who served with him said he kept a small holographic image of Valera in his quarters, a reminder of what they fought for. Day One was named Director of Honorary Integration, overseeing the careful release of alien technologies to human civilization. He took Valera's warnings to heart, ensuring humanity advanced at a sustainable pace. He never married, never had children. His life became devoted to honoring her sacrifice. 6 months after the battle, Earth received an unexpected transmission. It came from the Vryn Collective, a peaceful alliance of species that had also been resisting Calthari expansion. They proposed a formal alliance with humanity. Your victory has inspired others, their ambassador explained. For decades, we believed the Calthari were unstoppable. But you proved that determination and courage can overcome superior force. Will you stand with us? President Ji-hai accepted. Humanity joined the galactic community not as victims or supplicants, but as equals who had earned their place through defiance and sacrifice. Using data from Valera's memory core, human explorers began finding other Anari caches throughout the galaxy. Each one contained more knowledge, more technology, and messages specifically addressed to humanity. It became clear that Valera had not been alone. Dozens of Anari volunteers had gone into stasis at different locations. Insurance against the future's needs. 1 year after the battle, a young archaeologist named Ji-sun discovered something remarkable in an Anari cache on a distant world. It was a message from Valera, recorded before she entered stasis 800 years ago. In it, Valera sat in a quiet room, her silver skin gleaming in soft light. She looked directly at the recording device and spoke. To whoever finds this, whether human or otherwise, know this. I am not certain the prophecies are accurate. The Anari's predictions were based on probability, not certainty. I chose to enter stasis not because the future demanded it, but because I saw potential worth fighting for. Prophecy is not destiny. It is simply the universe offering possibilities. You must choose to make them real. She paused, and something like a smile crossed her alien features. I hope, when you watch this, that you have proven worthy of the faith I placed in you. Not because fate demanded it, but because you chose to be worthy. That is true defiance. When Day One saw the recording, something in his chest loosened. He had spent the past year carrying the weight of Valera's sacrifice, believing he had to live up to some predetermined destiny. But she had never asked that of him. She had simply offered him a choice and trusted him to make the right one. On the first anniversary of the Battle of Earth, a memorial was unveiled in Geneva. It showed Valera and Day One standing together, looking toward the stars. The inscription read, "In memory of Valera of the Anari, who waited centuries for humanity, and the humans who proved worthy of that weight. The galaxy will remember the defiance." The ceremony was attended by thousands. Representatives from the Vryn collective came, as did ambassadors from other species who had joined the growing alliance against the Kalfari Dominion. The enemy empire, weakened by losses and facing rebellions from within, was fragmenting. Humanity's example had changed the galaxy, not through superior weapons or ancient technology, but through the simple act of refusing to surrender when surrender seemed inevitable. Tejo attended the ceremony with his wife and 2 children. He had retired from combat flying and now ran an academy teaching young pilots. Valera showed us that heroism isn't about destiny, he told his students. It's about ordinary people making the choice to stand up when everything says to run. So Ra commanded humanity's first deep space exploration fleet, making contact with new civilizations and continuing the search for honorary caches. She carried a small hologram of Valera in her quarters, a reminder that the greatest strength was knowing when to. Trust Others. Haiyan Wu found unexpected peace in retirement, working with alien refugees who fled Kalfari territory to human space. He discovered purpose in building rather than destroying, protecting through preparation rather than warfare. 10 years after Valera's death, Day One visited the asteroid where he had first found her. The mining colony had been transformed into a research station dedicated to honorary studies. Standing in the chamber where her stasis pod once rested, he placed his hand on the wall and spoke aloud. "You told me I was meant for this, Valera. But I think you knew the truth. None of us are meant for anything. We just choose what we're willing to fight for. You chose to believe in species you'd never met, to sacrifice everything on the chance we'd be worth it." He paused, feeling the weight of a decade of work, of victories and losses, of the future they were building. "I choose to make sure your sacrifice meant something, not because fate demanded it, but because it's the right thing to do. Every day, I choose to stay defiant." A group of young students arrived at the research station, there to study Anari technology. Day One watched them, humans working alongside Vryn, former Kalfari citizens who had defected, species from across the galaxy drawn to humanity's growing alliance. One student, a brilliant young woman named Minji, approached him excitedly. "Director Day One, we found something in the data archives. Evidence of more Anari volunteers, potentially hundreds of them, still in stasis throughout unexplored regions." Day One felt his heart quicken. The Anari had left a network of hope across the galaxy, and humanity had proven the concept worked. Now came the harder task, helping other species find their own strength, their own defiance. He looked at Minji and the other students, seeing the future in their eager faces. "Then we have work to do. Prepare the exploration ships. We're going to find them all." That evening, Day One stood at the viewport of his quarters, looking at the stars. He held Valera's memory core, now inert but still treasured. Somewhere out there, other Anari waited in darkness. Some would sleep for centuries more. Others would wake soon. But all of them carried the same hope that Valera had carried. He made a promise to her memory and to himself. "We'll find them all. Every species you and your people left messages for. And we'll teach them what you taught us. That the future isn't written by prophecy. It's written by those defiant enough to believe they can change it." The next morning, Day One boarded a new exploration vessel, part of the fleet that would search for Honorai caches and make contact with civilizations that needed help. As the ship prepared to depart, he took one last look at Earth, the blue planet that had defied an empire and changed the galaxy. The engines engaged. Space folded around them as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Behind them, Earth continued its work, growing stronger, reaching further, building alliances that would reshape the galactic order. Across the universe, in hidden caches on forgotten worlds, stasis pods waited in silence. Inside them, Anari volunteers dreamed of the species they would awaken to guide. Some would find civilizations ready to learn. Others would find species that needed saving. But all of them shared one belief, the same belief that had driven Valera to sacrifice everything, that somewhere in the galaxy there were people worth waiting for. People who possessed the defiance. People who would look at impossible odds and say not, "We cannot," but "Watch us try." Humanity had proven that belief true. Now they would help others discover it in themselves. The ship carrying Day One and his team vanished into the darkness between stars, beginning a journey that would take decades. A time meant little to those who carried hope. Valera had waited 8 centuries. Day One could wait as long as it took. Behind him, Earth shone like a beacon in the void. Ahead, the galaxy waited with all its mysteries and dangers and possibilities. And somewhere between the past and the future, between prophecy and choice, between surrender and defiance, humanity wrote its own story. That it was a story that began with an alien woman who said, "I've waited centuries for you, human," and it would continue with the words humans said in return, "Thank you for believing in us." Now watch what we do with that faith. The galaxy would indeed watch, and it would remember. The words made sense, flowing directly into his mind. "I've waited centuries for you, human." Day One's voice came out as a croak. "What? Who are you?" She stepped out of the pod, and he noticed she was tall, easily matching his height. Her movements were graceful, precise, as if gravity affected her differently. "I am Valera of the Anari. We were the watchers of this galaxy. We observed species as they grew, cataloged their development, and prepared for moments like this." "Moments like what?" Day One managed to activate his beacon with shaking fingers. First contact with the Kalthari Dominion. Her expression grew sad, ancient. "They are coming for your people, Day One. A hostile empire that harvests younger civilizations. My people foresaw this encounter 800 years ago. I volunteered to wait here, in stasis, until humanity reached this exact point in space and time." "That's impossible. You can't predict the future." Valera touched his shoulder, and warmth spread through his suit. When she pulled her hand away, a burn he'd gotten yesterday on his forearm was gone, completely healed. "We don't predict. We calculate probabilities across thousands of variables. And we prepare. Come, let me show you." She moved to one of the walls and passed her hand across the symbols. A holographic star map appeared, showing human space and beyond. Red markers indicated positions throughout the frontier territories. "These are Kalthari's staging grounds," Valera explained. "Within 3 of your months, they will begin their invasion. Your colonies will fall one by one, unless you prepare." Day One stared at the map. Some of those red markers were near colonies with millions of people. "Why should I believe you? You could be anyone, anything. This could be some elaborate trick. You are right to doubt." Valera waved her hand again, and the display changed to show complex mathematical formulas. "These are the calculations for the quantum event your scientists detected last month near the Carina Nebula. Your people have been trying to understand it. We predicted it 4 centuries ago. The formulas were perfect, elegant, solving problems that Earth's best physicists were still struggling with." Day One felt his skepticism cracking. "What do you want from me?" He asked. "I need your help to reach other honorary caches across the galaxy. They contain weapons, technology, and knowledge that can help humanity survive. But the security systems require two things: an honorary biological signature and a human mind. We designed them this way intentionally. The technology is too dangerous to be accessed by one species alone. Why me specifically? Valera's eyes softened. The Anurai could see fragments of probable futures. In every timeline where humanity survived, a human engineer with grief-touched wisdom stood beside an Anari guide. Your record showed the loss of your sister, your isolation here, your brilliance with machines. You are the probability. Day One wanted to argue, to say this was insane, but before he could speak, alarm shrieked through his suit. His comm unit burst to life with panicked voices. Unknown contacts. 3 ships, not broadcasting human codes. They're firing. Repeat, they're firing on the station. Valera's expression shifted to something like fear. They're already here. The Kalthari must have detected my awakening signal. Explosions rumbled through the asteroid, shaking dust from the ancient chamber ceiling. Day One grabbed Valera's arm. We need to move. Now. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the shuttle bay. Wait. Valera returned to the pod and retrieved a small device, no bigger than her palm. It pulsed with soft blue light. This will cloak your shuttle. They won't be able to track us. They ran through the tunnel Day One had drilled, then into the maintenance corridors as the station shook around them. Other miners were evacuating, some screaming, others grimly silent as they rushed to escape pods. Day One led Valera to his personal shuttle, a small 2-seat craft he'd been modifying for months. As they strapped in, Valera attached her device to the shuttle's control panel. Light spread across the systems, integrating with technology that shouldn't have been compatible. The engines hummed differently, smoother, more powerful. Through the viewport, Day One saw the Kalthari ships. They were massive, organic-looking things with hull plating that resembled insect carapaces. Weapons fire lanced out, tearing through the station's habitat modules. Go, Valera urged. Day One launched the shuttle, threading through debris and fleeing evacuation craft. The Kalthari ships didn't react as they passed within a kilometer. The cloaking device was working. As they cleared the asteroid field and prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel. Day One looked at the alien woman sitting beside him. She was real. Her warning was real. And everything he thought he knew about the universe had just changed forever. Where do we go? He asked quietly. To the nearest human military outpost. Haven Station. We must warn your people before the invasion begins. Valera looked back at the burning station, and Day One saw genuine sorrow in her alien eyes. I'm sorry we couldn't save them. Day One set the coordinates and engaged the drive. As stars stretched into lines around them, he wondered what he had just gotten himself into, and whether humanity was ready for what was coming. The journey to Haven Station took 3 days. Day One spent most of that time asking Valera questions, trying to understand the enormity of what she was telling him. She explained that the Honoree had watched the galaxy for 10,000 years. Observing the rise and fall of civilizations like humans might watch seasons change. Every few millennia, a dominant species rises, Valera said, sitting cross-legged in the co-pilot seat. They conquer, they expand, they believe they will last forever. Then they collapse under their own weight. War, resource depletion, internal conflict. The pattern repeats. And humans? Day One asked, are different. Her eyes caught the light from the navigation console. You possess something we call the defiance. When faced with impossible problems, humans don't accept defeat. You find ways around, through, or over obstacles. You adapt faster than any species we've observed. It's chaotic, unpredictable, and exactly what this galaxy needs. Day One wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a warning. Haven Station appeared ahead, a massive wheel spinning slowly in space. Dozens of ships clustered around it, freighters and passenger vessels, and the occasional military patrol craft. It was one of the major trade hubs where different human colonies intersected. Day one docked carefully, and they made their way through the crowded corridors. Valera drew stares everywhere. Her silver skin and violet hair were impossible to hide. People whispered and pointed, some backing away nervously. "I need to find someone I trust," Day one muttered. "Someone who won't immediately turn us over to security." He found Tae-ho in a bar near the lower docking levels. His old friend was older now, with scars across his knuckles and a cynical smile that came from years of questionable cargo runs. When he saw Day one, his eyes widened. "I thought you were dead." Tae-ho stood, then froze when he saw Valera. "What in the hell is that?" "Someone who needs help," Day one said. "Can we talk privately?" Tae-ho's private ship was a modified cargo hauler, all mismatched hull plating and jury-rigged systems. Inside, Day one explained everything while Tae-ho listened with increasing disbelief. Aliens. Ancient prophecies. Invasion fleets. Tae-he laughed, but it sounded forced. "Day one, have you been drinking recycled air too long?" Valera stood and pulled a small device from her robes. It was a power cell, no bigger than her thumb, but when she activated it, light filled the room with clean, endless energy. Tae-ho's scanner went crazy trying to measure the output. "This is worth more than your entire ship," Valera said simply. "Consider it payment for your assistance." Tae-ho stared at the cell, then at Valera, then back at the cell. "Okay, I'm listening." Before they could plan their next move, security forces surrounded the ship. Someone had reported the alien woman. Lieutenant Sora led the team, her military uniform crisp, her expression hard. She was young but carried herself with absolute authority. Everyone out. Hands visible. Now. They were taken to a detention center and separated. Day one spent an hour in a small room before Sora entered, carrying a datapad. "The mining station you escaped from was completely destroyed," she said without preamble. 43 miners dead. And you show up here with an unknown alien making wild claims about invasions. Start talking." Day one told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her expression revealing nothing. When he finished, she stood and left without a word. 2 hours later, she returned with senior officers. They brought Valera into the room and had her repeat her warnings. Sora pulled up reports on her datapad. "We've had 6 colonies go dark along the frontier in the past month," Sora said slowly. "No distress calls, no signs of struggle. Just ... gone. High Command thought it was equipment failure or pirate raids." "It was the Kalthari," Valera said. "Testing your defenses. Learning your response patterns." One of the senior officers leaned forward. "If what you say is true, where's this cache you mentioned? The one with weapons and intelligence?" "Buried beneath the ice caps of Titan, Saturn's largest moon. I can provide exact coordinates." The room fell silent. Finally, Sora spoke. "We need to take this to Earth Defense Command. If there's even a chance she's telling the truth, we can't ignore it." The transmission went up the chain of command quickly. Within hours, authorization came back. They would send a small team to Titan to verify Valera's claims. Sora would lead it. Day one and Valera would come as technical specialists. Tae-ho would provide the ship, and they added one more member to the team. Hyenwoo was a combat specialist, a veteran of the border skirmishes with his left arm, replaced by military-grade cybernetics. He had cold eyes and spoke little, but when he did, people listened. "If this is a trap," he said quietly to Valera during the pre-mission briefing, "I will put a bullet through your head before you can blink." "Understood," Valera replied calmly. I would expect nothing less. They departed Haven Station 12 hours later. As Tae-ho's ship, now officially designated as a military transport, cleared the dock, alarms suddenly blared across the station. All personnel, security breach in Sector 9. We have hostiles. Day 1 ran to the viewport. Below, on the station's outer ring, he could see figures moving with inhuman speed. They were tall and thin, with too many joints in their limbs, wearing dark armor that seemed to absorb light. Kalthari assassins, Valera said, her face pale. They've come for me. Tae-ho started to turn the ship back, but So-Ra grabbed his shoulder. We can't dock. Station security has to handle this. Our mission is too important. Through the viewport, they watched as security forces engaged the assassins. The creatures moved like liquid death, dodging fire and striking with bladed weapons that cut through armor like paper. Station personnel fought bravely, but they were outmatched. We're leaving people to die down there, Day 1 said. We're ensuring their deaths mean something, So-Ra replied, her voice tight. If we fail, everyone dies. Everyone. Hyen-Woo was watching the tactical displays. Station security is falling back to defensive positions. They're buying time for evacuations. Professional work. As they accelerated away from Haven Station, a final transmission came through. It was the station commander, his voice strained. Unknown vessels, you are clear to proceed. Godspeed. Make this count. The comm went dead. Moments later, they watched as Haven Station's defensive cannons finally drove the assassins back to their stealth ship. But not before the aliens had killed dozens. Inside Tae-ho's ship, silence reigned. Finally, Valera spoke, her voice heavy with ancient sorrow. This is my fault. The Kalthari detected my stasis pod's awakening signal. They've been hunting for Anari caches for decades, knowing the technology could threaten their expansion. By waking me, Day 1 activated a beacon we didn't account for. Then we make sure those people didn't die for nothing, So-Ra said firmly. How long until we reach Titan? 3 days at maximum speed, Tae-ho replied. Then we use that time to prepare. Valera, you'll brief us on everything you know about Kalthari tactics. Hyen-Woo, work with Day 1 on adapting our weapons to interface with any Anari technology we find. I want us ready for anything. As the ship entered faster-than-light travel, Day 1 found himself standing beside Valera in the small observation room. She was staring at the streaking stars, and he noticed her hands were trembling. 800 years, she whispered. I slept for 800 years, believing that my sacrifice would save lives. And the first thing my awakening does is get people killed. It's not your fault, Day 1 said. You couldn't have known. I should have calculated better. Should have considered all variables. She turned to him, and for the first time, he saw her not as an ancient alien, but as someone carrying impossible weight. I had a family, Day 1. A bondmate named Corin, a daughter, Alanis. I left them behind to do this. I will never see them again, never know if they lived full lives or if they grieved for me. And I'm terrified that I made that sacrifice for nothing. Day 1 understood that pain intimately. My sister's name was Hannah. She was studying environmental engineering on Mars. The dome failed during a dust storm. She died trying to help others evacuate. He paused, old grief rising. I couldn't save her, but I can honor her by making sure her death meant something. Same as you're doing now. Valera reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool, smooth like metal, but somehow still feeling alive. Then we will honor them together. 2 days into the journey, Valera collapsed. She was walking through the ship's common area when her legs simply gave out. Day 1 caught her before she hit the deck. What's wrong? Her voice came weakly. The stasis wasn't meant to last this long. My people expected me to wake after 3, maybe 400 years. 8 centuries has degraded my biological systems. Day 1 carried her to the medical bay, his mind racing. Can we fix it? The Anari cache on Titan must have medical technology. Perhaps, but we must reach it soon. My biological signature is needed to access the archives. If I die before we arrive... She didn't need to finish the sentence. The pressure mounted. They were racing against time with the lives of billions hanging in the balance, and their only guide was slowly dying. Day 1 worked frantically over the next day, using his engineering knowledge to jury-rig the ship's medical systems with the small Anari devices Valera carried. It wasn't enough to heal her, but it stabilized her condition. Barely dot as Titan grew larger in the viewport. So Ra received a transmission from Earth Defense Command that made everyone's blood run cold. The Kalthari had issued an ultimatum to all of humanity: surrender the frontier colonies or face total war. Earth had 72 hours to respond. The clock was ticking. Titan loomed below them, its orange atmosphere swirling with methane storms. Tae-ho brought the ship down carefully, following coordinates Valera provided between moments of consciousness. She was fading fast now, her silver skin losing its luster, becoming dull and gray. 2 kilometers beneath the ice, she whispered. Near the geothermal vents. The heat keeps the structure accessible. They landed near a cluster of ice geysers that erupted periodically, shooting frozen particles into the sky. The team suited up in environmental gear. Hyun Woo carried Valera in his arms, his cybernetic strength making her weight nothing. The descent was terrifying. They used drilling equipment and climbing gear to work their way down through ancient ice layers. Several times, the ice shifted, nearly sending someone plummeting into darkness. Day 1 used his engineering skills to anchor safety lines and find stable paths, but his hands shook the entire time. At one point, the ice beneath Sora gave way completely. She dropped with a scream, her safety lines snapping taut. Tae-ho and Day 1 hauled her back up, everyone's hearts pounding. Keep moving, Sora gasped. We don't have time for fear. Finally, after 4 hours of descent, they broke through into a cavern beneath the ice. It opened into something massive, a structure carved into the rock itself. The walls were covered in the same glowing symbols Day 1 had seen in the first chamber. But these were brighter, more complex. The entrance was a door 30 meters tall, made of material that looked like solidified light. Hyun Woo set Valera down gently in front of it. She pressed her palm against the surface, and the symbols blazed. The door recognized her, but only partially. A holographic interface appeared, showing a 3-dimensional puzzle of impossible geometry. Shapes that couldn't exist in normal space floated in the air, waiting to be solved. I don't have the strength, Valera said weakly. Day 1, this is why we needed you. The puzzle requires a human mind. You must solve it. Day 1 stared at the puzzle. The shapes hurt to look at, angles that twisted in ways that made his brain ache. He reached out to touch one, and it shifted, rotating through dimensions his eyes couldn't quite follow. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. Exactly, Valera replied. It's not meant to. Anari security systems are designed to be solved not through logic, but through acceptance of contradiction. You must hold 2 opposing truths simultaneously and find the pattern between them. Hours passed. The team waited while Day 1 worked, moving shapes, trying combinations, failing over and over. His head pounded. His eyes burned. But he kept trying, driven by desperation and the knowledge that Valera was dying beside him. Then, suddenly, he understood. The puzzle wasn't about making the shapes fit normal geometry. It was about accepting that they existed in multiple states at once. That the solution was found not in resolving the contradiction, but in embracing it. He arranged the shapes not in a pattern that made sense, but in one that shouldn't work yet somehow did. Quantum probability made physical. The moment he placed the final piece, the entire puzzle collapsed into a single point of light and vanished. The door opened out inside was wonder beyond imagination. The archive stretched for what looked like kilometers, though the space felt wrong, as if it was bigger on the inside than the cavern should allow. Rows of crystalline storage devices lined the walls, each one pulsing with soft light. Holographic displays showed star maps, weapon schematics, medical diagrams, and technologies that humanity hadn't even dreamed of yet. By all the stars, Tai-Ho whispered Sora was already moving to a central console, her military training taking over. We need to download everything we can. Get the portable storage devices ready. But Valera grabbed Day One's arm with surprising strength. Wait. You must understand what you're accessing. This much knowledge, even all at once, could destroy humanity faster than the Kalthari ever could. What do you mean? Sora demanded. The Anari watched civilizations destroy themselves with advancement they weren't ready for. Weapons too powerful to control. AI that subverted organic authority. Technologies that undermined social structures. Knowledge has a cost, and humanity must be ready to pay it. Haiyan Wu stepped forward, his expression hard. Earth is facing invasion in less than 3 days. We need every advantage we can get. I'm not saying don't use it, Valera replied. I'm saying choose carefully. Take the weapons technology, yes. The defensive systems, the star maps showing Kalthari positions. But some of this knowledge, the most powerful tools, should wait until humanity has proven it can handle them responsibly. Day One looked at the vast archive around them. He understood what Valera meant. Some of these technologies could end hunger, cure diseases, extend life indefinitely. But given to a humanity still divided, still fighting among themselves, it could cause more harm than good. We take what we need to survive, he said finally. The rest stays here, accessible for later when we've earned it. Sora looked like she wanted to argue, but finally she nodded. Get the star maps first. I need to know where every Kalthari ship is positioned. They spent the next hour downloading data. The star maps were stunning, showing not just Kalthari positions, but their supply lines, staging grounds, and fleet compositions for months into the future. There were weapon designs that could integrate with human technology, defensive shields that could protect entire planets, and medical systems that could heal injuries previously thought fatal. Day One worked with Valera, selecting technologies carefully. She guided him through the archive, explaining what each system did and what dangers it posed. Even dying, she thought of humanity's future beyond just survival. Then Haiyan Wu's combat instincts triggered. Contact. We've got movement in the ice tunnels. They ran to the entrance. Through the opening, Day One could see figures descending toward them. Not human figures. These were Kalthari, wearing armor that seemed to shift and change color to match their surroundings. There were dozens of them, moving with terrifying coordination. They tracked us here, Sora said, her voice tight. Everyone back? We need to fortify this position. But they were trapped. The only exit was the way they came, and the Kalthari controlled it now. The team fell back deeper into the archive, using the crystalline storage devices as cover. The Kalthari commander entered the chamber, and Day One got his first clear look at the enemy. The creature was tall, nearly 3 meters, with chitinous armor that looked grown rather than made. Its face was hidden behind a helmet, but when it spoke, the voice was translated into harsh, mechanical human speech. Surrender the honorary female and the archive access codes. You will be allowed to leave. Like hell, Tai-Ho muttered, raising his weapon. The firefight that erupted was brutal. Kalthari weapons fired projectiles that exploded on impact, sending shrapnel everywhere. Hyen Wu returned fire with military precision, his cybernetic arms steady as he picked targets. So-Ra coordinated their defense, using the archive's layout to create choke points, but they were being pushed back. For every Kalthari that fell, 2 more seemed to appear. Tae-Ho took a hit to his shoulder, going down hard. Day 1 dragged him to cover, while So-Ri provided suppressing fire. "We can't hold them," Hyen Wu shouted over the weapon's fire. Valera, barely conscious, crawled to a central console. Her hands moved across controls, entering commands with shaking fingers. "There's a defense system. Ancient Anari protocols. But it requires my biological signature to maintain." "What does that mean?" Day 1 demanded. "It means I burn what remains of my life to power it. But it will destroy every hostile presence in this chamber." "No." Day 1 grabbed her hand. "There has to be another way." She looked at him with those nebula eyes, sad and ancient, and somehow peaceful. "I was meant to die here, Day 1. I accepted that 800 years ago when I entered stasis. I have minutes left anyway. Let me make them count." "Valera, please." "Promise me something," she interrupted gently. "Promise me you'll show humanity what the defiance truly means. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just defeating the Kalthari, but building something better in their place." Tears ran down Day 1's face. "I promise." She smiled, then placed both hands on the console. Light erupted from her body, flowing into the ancient systems. The archive came alive around them. Holographic barriers appeared, shielding the team. And from the walls emerged constructs of hard light, warrior forms of pure energy that began systematically eliminating every Kalthari in the chamber. The Kalthari tried to retreat, but the constructs were merciless and perfectly precise. Within minutes, the last enemy fell, but Valera was dissolving. Her physical form broke down into streams of light, her silver skin becoming transparent. She looked at Day 1 one final time. "Thank you for making these last days matter. Tell humanity. Tell them to stay defiant." Then she was gone, leaving only a small crystalline object in Day 1's hand. It pulsed with soft blue light, warm to the touch. Her memory core, containing everything she was, everything she knew. The team stood in shocked silence. Tae-Ho clutched his wounded shoulder. So-Ra leaned against a storage device, exhausted. Hyen Wu's weapon hung loose in his hands. Day 1 held the memory core to his chest, and Webb got the archive's main computer activated suddenly, displaying a message in glowing letters. "Warning. Kalthari main fleet detected. Estimated arrival at Earth, 47 hours. Anari. Protocol Phoenix available. Authorization required." Sora straightened despite her exhaustion. "What's Protocol Phoenix?" Day 1 wiped his eyes and connected the memory core to the console. Valera's voice, preserved and fading, explained through the interface. Protocol Phoenix was humanity's last hope, a defensive system designed for civilizations facing extinction. But implementing it would require every resource. Earth had a level of cooperation humanity had never achieved. The clock was ticking. They had less than 2 days to save their species. "Load everything into the shuttle," Sora ordered. "We're leaving now. Earth needs to know what's coming." As they climbed back through the ice, carrying their wounded and their precious cargo of alien technology, Day 1 held Valera's memory core close. She had waited 8 centuries for this moment. He would not let her sacrifice be in vain. The journey back to Earth took every bit of speed Tae-Ho's ship could manage. They pushed the engines beyond safe limits, ignoring warning alarms and heat alerts. In the medical bay, Tae-Ho lay recovering from his shoulder wound, while Sora worked with a damaged arm, refusing to rest. Day One spent every waking moment interfacing with Valera's memory core. When he connected it to his neural link using Anari technology, her consciousness spoke to him in dreams and visions. She showed him the technical specifications for Protocol Phoenix, a massive defensive network that could turn Earth's existing military into something capable of fighting the Kalthari, but it was impossible. The protocol required building hundreds of orbital defense satellites, upgrading every military ship in the fleet, and creating power distribution networks across multiple planets. It should take years. They had less than 40 hours. It can't be done, Hyun-woo said flatly when Daewon explained the requirements. Even with the blueprints, we don't have the time or resources. Then humanity dies, Daewon replied quietly. Because the Kalthari fleet will arrive exactly when Valera predicted, and without Protocol Phoenix, our defenses won't last an hour. They reached Earth with 32 hours remaining. The planet hung in space like a blue jewel, unaware of the dune racing toward it. Earth Defense Command was in chaos. Emergency sessions were running continuously, with colony representatives arguing about whether to surrender, fight, or flee So-Ra despite her injuries. Arranged for them to present their findings directly to the United Earth Council. It was a desperate gamble, bypassing normal military channels, but there was no time for bureaucracy. The council chamber was a circular room where representatives from every major colony sat. At the center stood President Ji-hai, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many crises. She listened as Daewon presented everything they had learned, using Valera's memory core to project holographic evidence. The star maps showing Kalthari fleet positions caused gasps. The weapon specifications drew murmurs. But when Daewon explained Protocol Phoenix and the timeline required, the room erupted in arguments. "This is insane," one representative shouted. "We can't rebuild our entire defense network in a day." "It's alien technology," another argued. "How do we know it's not a trap?" "We should surrender," a third voice called. "Save what we can." President Ji-hai raised her hand and silence fell. She looked at Daewon with calculating eyes. "You're asking us to stake everything on the word of an alien you knew for a week. An alien who's now dead. Why should we trust this?" Daewon felt the weight of billions of lives pressing down on him. He thought of Valera, of her 800-year sacrifice, of her faith in humanity's potential. He thought of his sister Hana, who died trying to save others. And he found words he didn't know he had. Because the Anari believed in something they called the Defiance. It's not just stubbornness or aggression. It's the human refusal to accept that any problem is unsolvable, that any enemy is unbeatable, that any future is predetermined. Valera waited 8 centuries for us because she saw in humanity something worth preserving. Are we really going to prove her wrong now? The room was silent. Finally, President Ji-hai spoke. "We vote. All in favor of implementing Protocol Phoenix?" The vote was close. Terrifyingly close. But it passed. What followed was the most incredible engineering effort in human history. President Ji-hai declared a state of emergency and granted Daewon authority to coordinate the technical implementation. Every shipyard, every factory, every manufacturing facility across Earth, and the colonies pivoted to producing components for Protocol Phoenix. Day 1 broadcast. Instructions to engineers across the solar system. The Anari designs were elegant but complex, requiring precision that pushed human manufacturing to its limits. But humans did what they did best. They adapted. Factory on Mars that made civilian shuttles retooled in 6 hours to produce defense satellites. Orbital construction crews worked in shifts that should have been physically impossible, going days without sleep. Corporate rivals shared resources and expertise. Setting aside decades of competition, Toho, still recovering from his wound, used his network of smugglers and black market contacts to acquire rare materials that would have taken weeks to source through official channels. His connections proved invaluable, cutting through red tape and bureaucracy. "Never thought I'd be saving the world," he joked weakly from his medical bed. "Always figured I'd be the guy who got saved." Hyun Woo took charge of integrating Anari weapons into human military units. His combat experience combined with the new technology created training protocols that turned ordinary soldiers into elite fighters in hours instead of months. He was ruthless in his efficiency, pushing people past their limits because he knew what failure meant. Ra, working from Earth Defense Command with her injured arm in a sling, coordinated the orbital defense network's deployment. Her tactical mind proved invaluable, positioning satellites for maximum effectiveness based on the Kalthari attack patterns Valera had provided. Throughout it all, Day One maintained constant contact with Valera's memory core. Her consciousness, though fading with each interaction, provided crucial guidance. When engineers hit problems, she offered solutions. When systems failed to integrate, she explained workarounds. But each time he connected to her, she became a little less coherent, her preserved consciousness degrading like a recording played too many times. With 8 hours remaining, a critical issue emerged. The resonance cannon, Protocol Phoenix's most powerful weapon, required an honorary consciousness to operate its targeting system. The weapon was designed to destroy capital ships, but its precision demanded calculations. No human or computer could perform fast enough. Valera's preserved consciousness could do it, but the effort would burn out what remained of her completely. She would be gone forever, no chance of recovery or preservation. Day One sat alone in his quarters, holding the memory core. He could hear her voice in his mind, faint now, like an echo of an echo. "You want to save me," she said gently. "I understand, but I was meant to die on Titan. I accepted that. Let me choose how my end serves the future." "There has to be another way," Day One insisted. "Perhaps in another timeline. But in this one, this is my path. And Day One, it's not a tragedy. I've existed for over 8 centuries. I've seen wonders you cannot imagine and carried sorrows that would break you. I'm ready to rest. But first, let me do one final thing that matters." Day One wept, but he agreed. He uploaded her consciousness to the resonance cannon's targeting system, feeling her presence settle into the weapon like she was finally coming home. With 3 hours remaining before the Kalthari arrived, Protocol Phoenix was as complete as it could be. It wasn't perfect. Some satellites weren't fully online. Some ship upgrades were incomplete. But it was functional, and that would have to be enough. President Ji-hai broadcast a message to all of humanity and, knowing the Kalthari would intercept it, to the enemy fleet as well. "This is President Ji-hai of United Earth to the Kalthari Dominion. You have issued an ultimatum. We have considered our response. We do not surrender. We do not flee. We are humanity, and we defy you." The Kalthari fleet arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 300 warships, each the size of a small city, their hulls dark and insectoid, weapons that could crack planets. Across Earth and every colony, billions of people watched as the enemy approached. Children held their parents' hands. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Engineers said prayers to gods they half believed in. In the orbital command center, Day One stood at the resonance cannon controls. He could feel Valera's presence in the system, calm and ready. Ra coordinated the defense fleet. Hyun Woo was planetside, leading ground forces prepared for drop troops. Taho, against all medical advice, had taken command of a fighter squadron. The Kalthari broadcast their final warning: surrender now. This is your last chance. President G.I.'s response was simple. Come and take it. The Kalthari fleet accelerated toward Earth, weapons charging with enough energy to sterilize the planet. Defense satellites activated, filling space with networks of energy shields. Human warships, upgraded with Anari engines and weapons, moved to intercept with speed that shocked the Kalthari commanders. The first wave of Kalthari ships hit Earth's defenses like a tsunami hitting a seawall. Energy shields flared and held. Human ships engaged with weapons fire that actually damaged Kalthari armor. The enemy had expected an easy slaughter. Instead, they found a fight. Day One watched the tactical displays as battles erupted across the solar system. The Kalthari were being hurt, actually taking losses, but they kept coming. 300 ships against humanity's few dozen upgraded vessels. The numbers were still impossible. Then he saw it on the scanners. The Kalthari flagship, a massive dreadnought, called the Dominion's Fist, pushing through the defense lines. It was heading directly for Earth, intent on destroying the planet's surface as an example. Valera, Day One whispered into the cannon's control system. Can you target it? Her voice came back faint, but certain. Yes, but Day One, this will be the end. I'll need to burn everything I am to maintain the targeting lock through the firing sequence. Are you ready to let me go? Day One looked at the planet below, at the billions of people depending on this moment. He thought of his sister, of Valera's family she left behind, of all the sacrifices that had led to this point. I'm ready, he said. Thank you, Valera, for everything, for believing in us. Thank you, she replied, for making me believe again. Fire when ready. The flagship was lining up its planet-killing shot. Day One's hand hovered over the firing control. Time seemed to slow. He could feel Valera's consciousness spreading through the targeting system, calculating trajectories and frequencies that would pierce the flagship's shields. He pressed the button. The resonance cannon fired,